Welcome to We Are Everyone, a video and podcast series powered by Pivotal Moments, and we focus on the intersection of mental wellness in the workforce. We bring together young professionals and mindful executive mentors to bridge the generational gap and bring to the surface conversations about the importance of mental wellness and how to overcome career tradition challenges. Mental wellness is paramount. Join us. Welcome to We Are Everyone Mental Recess as we transition over to our new name. We have a very special guest today, actually a future host of a channel coming soon under the We Are Everyone. A show coming soon under the We Are Everyone channel and on the Pivotal Moments Media Network. We have Jason Cormier. He is, I don't know, Jason, I'm not really sure what to properly give you a title you as. I would say neurosurgeon, musician, author, all the things. So I'll just let you kind of, tell us a little about yourself and background and all that jazz.
Jenn, first of all, it's really a pleasure to be here on your show. It's always great to share a little bit about what I do and where I came from. And it's a story that, a lot of people probably have. I guess I'm just another person that's sharing my experiences in life. And I am a neurosurgeon. And through really some really interesting relationships that I developed over the years, I became involved in racing, and so I worked with ARCA, NASCAR, some other racing organizations like Formula One, the International Council of Motorsport Sciences, and through that, I've also worked with the jockeys. I've worked with the NHRA, the NFL, and expanded that to music with Jeff Goodwin and Noah Gordon with 8-Track Entertainment. And of course, I've also worked with one of my dearest friends, Tamara Allen, with After the Impact and Now to the Moment. So I don't like to say I do it all, but I do a number of things. But the most important thing I'm doing right now is, being a father to a newborn. And that's been really at the cornerstone of what my happiness is right now with my fiance.
Well, congratulations. I remember back in February, I was talking to Tamara and we were like, all right, so we're not sure when we're going to be able to get Jason on because he's got to be a father to be. And I'm like, I understand. And that like 30 to 45 day window when, it's game time, it's game time. So I appreciate you kind of coming on. I'm sure as with having a newborn at home, it's definitely keeping you busy.
Oh yeah, for sure. I have a really supportive fiance, and it's inspired me in so many different ways. And to all the fathers out there and parents, they know how it feels, and I just can't say enough. That experience has been just super.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. And I know you're a neurosurgeon. I'm not sure if you in the hospital, if you ever go down to the newborn or, maternity ward, but like, it's probably different to see babies coming every day versus your own. So I'm sure that's exciting.
It's very exciting. I think I told the OBGYN at the time she delivered that I think I do a couple of cool things in the operating room, but that by far was the best. There's no topping that no matter what I do in the operating room. Delivering a newborn child is the essence of just perfection. I can't top that.
I bet. I mean, here's the thing. It's like, God, like if you could just like repeat that one moment of having the child rather than having 20 children, so you could always have it again and again. It's just beautiful. It's a magical moment. So outside of being a new dad, and shout out to your fiance for being so supportive. Love that. How did your work more necessarily, you mentioned all these other, just a bunch of different things that you're involved in, right? But I guess my question for you is, how did your work in the medical field kind of lead you to work with a number of sporting organizations and eventually write your own book and produce music?
Sure. So when I became involved in neurosurgery, when I first started, I knew I wanted to come into neurosurgery and add to that specialty. I knew I just didn't want to be a neurosurgeon. I wanted to help change it and help bring it to another level. And so what that did for me is obviously I tour the brain quite often. I tour the spine quite often. And I also have a passion for sports, being a former athlete. former professional athlete, and also I have a love for racing. And it's very interesting in how those things came together. In 2015, I attended the Hangout Fest, and it's basically a music festival in Orange Beach. And I was able to attend a concert that was being held by Skrillex. And it was an EDM concert, and he just became one of my favorite artists. And it reminded me, just looking around the crowd, of people just moving their heads, and they just felt great. They weren't thinking about any problems of the world. They were just having fun. And that's what a lot of the essence of life and happiness is all about. And so from that, 2016, 2017, I started Motorsport Safety Group when I came in contact with Jeff Gooden and the guys, Mark Goodwin at Gundrum, at ARCA, who was also involved in NASCAR, said, hey, you're a neurosurgeon. This is what we have and this is what we don't have. And it was very interesting to find out that on the track, at least for NASCAR and a number of racing organizations, there's a void just in terms of the specialties that need to be on the track. And the drivers really wanted that. Well, that also brought me to Julian Bales, who many people might know from the movie Concussion. And so we got together and decided, hey, we probably should design some sort of organization that could develop a platform or an educational exchange, if you will, to try to elevate the safety in all kinds of high contact sports. That would include football, rugby, racing, hockey, you name it. Any sport that involved high contact sports that would potentially injure your brain, we were going to take on. And that's really what we did. And so I created the Motorsports Safety Group and Motorsports Brain and Spine Foundation. And through that organization, from my neurosurgical background, I was able to develop a platform of not only preventative aspects of brain injury, but also diagnostic and now treatment aspects of brain injury. And so as this is coming together, then the music piece came more so involved, because with my job being so stressful, after I would produce music, I would use the operating room and of course my fiance as a litmus test to see if they enjoyed the music or not.
That's amazing.
And so if they said no, we don't like this, then I'd say, well, that's back to the drawing board, throw it away. And so I started with basically this online program out of New York, and really for about a year or so, it was every Monday for about an hour and 45 minutes. I was doing this online training to go through music theory, music production, etc. And at the end of it, one track became 3 tracks, became 7 tracks. And now I'm sitting on probably close to 180 tracks, including remixes and half of those of my own original music. And that all stemmed from, it's crazy. It all came full circle. It came from me sending a demo tape to Skrillex's group, and they responded back with, do you have your own original music? And I was like, well, no, I really don't, but I do have Ableton upstairs, the Ableton suite. I just need to upgrade it. And so that just inspired me to go further. And it reminded me when I was a DJ in high school, and I had a group with a couple of guys and who were in the book. And it just, going through medicine, going through basketball and sports, I was no longer able to spend time producing music or be a DJ. And so I was able to revisit that as really a reservoir of peace and serenity to get away from just the rigmarole and the stress load of being in an operating room, operating on the brain and spine. And those two things coming together at the same time while racing's, right there as well. It just, through the grace of God, all just came together. And yeah, that's kind of how it all started. And they all have their part.
Well, it's pretty serendipitous, right? Because at the end of the day, and I don't know if it's, I guess I would use ironic. My brain, oh my God, now I talk about my brain, I'm like, you can see inside of it. But I feel like all those things connect though, like with the music, right? Like I had on a music therapist on the show. She calls it like neurosound therapy. And so really like the effects of music on the brain are astonishing. Like what people listen to, you do these sound baths and stuff. So it's kind of interesting too, how you've connected all of these things. And one of them also happens to be like a talent passion of yours as well. So that's pretty rad.
Yeah, and embarrassingly enough, I had no idea. And I think that's also some pretty cool aspects about my story, because there are a number of people out there that get to this fork in the road and they have no idea what they're going to do with their lives. But as long as you're passionate, I hope they get from that you can do anything you want. But you're right. I mean, music stimulates the mind in so many ways. And we're finding through neurofeedback that there's a lot of literature that's based on just that very thing.
Yeah. And music in general. So I'm a huge Peloton fanatic, and I will sit for 20 minutes. Like I'll sit and make sure that the music and the class I'm choosing is for the mood I'm in. Like today I could have done a song with like 10,000 Maniacs. I was like, I don't really want to go back to childhood today. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. It's going to bring me a little sad. Like, let's just go with an EDM bed ad list, right? You can't go wrong with EDM. Love skill lyrics, like love. I'm on the same page as you. So, going into a little bit of that, just, and thinking about, right, like you're and navigating to the author side, right? And as you spoke about, you have a book coming out, which is very exciting. And can I say the name of the book, or is that kosher?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
no,
cool.
Absolutely.
I've always on like the viewer side. So we have a book coming out called Driven. And I would love for you to kind of tell our audience and tease it a little bit, as this is a tease for your show that will be launched Rise Above. And then also, let's get a big plug in for the book as well.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that. So the name of the book is called Driven, and it's really a book about, my life, my trials and tribulations from birth, and how I was able to, really dig deep and through being driven, essentially, having some willpower and determination. I was able to overcome some of what some people might think were insurmountable odds. And a number of people, again, are facing those same odds. And I found different ways to overcome those and made some successes of my life. And, regardless of whether or not people are telling you can't do something, and they're out there, they're the naysayers. They could be friends, they could be family, they could, whoever. The book will hopefully challenge you or inspire you to rise above those challenges of people telling you can't do something. And I think when someone tells you can't do something, it just means, look, I can't do it with you. But some kind of way, I'm going to make it happen in my own right. And so the book, again, is coming to a fork in the road. You're not really sure what you're going to do with your life. I had no idea at the time, leaving college, that I was going to eventually become a neurosurgeon. I felt like the MBA was going to be it, and I was going to go off and do that and, be some sort of star on the basketball court. But that frankly didn't happen. I was confronted with an injury like a number of people. And I was lucky that my mother was one of the ones that always pushed education. And so I was always strong in the sciences, and I fell back on education, which is one of the most important things. I was happy that I listened to her and focused always on education. And with that, I was able to get into medical school and matriculate to a neurosurgical program and finish up and become a neurosurgeon. And then the other passions that followed, I was able to essentially not create them, but return to them and help foster them. And then they all came together, like you said. And that's also in the book.
So do you think, like, when it comes down to, I always grew up with attitude, right? I unfortunately did not ever really stick to anything when I was little. Like I tried everything, track, all these things. And maybe that was kind of weird why I'm so confused sometimes around like, what am I really good at? And I know I'm good at things, but I'm saying, but just the mindset, right? So this whole path that you were on with the discipline of playing a sport, then education, and then being driven on top of that kind of was allowed you to have that like great recipe to finish school, become a neurosurgeon, but then also realize like that's not your full life, right? There's so many other things that you're interested in. So I'm kind of curious, like from having the injury, and we talk about this a lot of like mental fitness, like what was that motivator that kind of drew, like, that drove. Let's get that right. Drove you
Right.
to keep kind of pushing, right? Because medical school is not easy, and so I'm just curious, like what that motivator, how you continue to strengthen your mental fitness muscle to kind of get to each step.
Right. So, and that's so important. I had a lot of failures, and I think that you have to choose whether or not you're going to succumb to your failures or you're going to learn from them. And so my story, what I've said thus far, doesn't represent a number of failures that I had to go through before coming to the successes that I'm now experiencing now. And you're right. I've pursued several different things. And what I did, if I didn't have full passion into it, or, I didn't want to sit there and struggle through both the ups and downs of that certain situation, then I would essentially bug out, if you will. I was no longer interested. So I went on to something else. But the things that really I felt challenged and I felt like, yeah, God put me in this place for a certain reason, then I continued to pursue that. And so when we talk about, mental fitness, mental fitness is I think most well defined as being a state of well-being. And, it's having a positive sense of how we feel, how we think and how we act. And I think that that's just as important as physical fitness. When you think about physical fitness, there's a cardiovascular endurance, there's a strength and flexibility, and also, a healthy weight. When we talk about, mental fitness, mental toughness, when it comes down to it, it's really about strengthening, the neuronal pathways that can lead to the most realistic and objective thoughts. And if you empower yourself to focus on positive things, then they'll further strengthen those positive outcomes, versus if you focus on negative things, then you're going to continue to be just kind of be in negative situations. And so I think in the brain, at least, I've learned over the years, through neuroplasticity, the brain rewires itself. It has the opportunity to do that, so that as you build on positive things, more positive things will happen, more positive thoughts will happen. And so at the essence of mental fitness, I think there's really kind of four things. There's an emotional side of it, in which it builds your self-acceptance, your self-esteem, your resilience, and your ability to manage different situations, no matter how comprehensive or challenging they may be. The second one is more social, and that's a little complicated because social media can have a negative impact, but family and friends sit at the cornerstone of that, and certainly family. My fiance and our two kids are really just at the cornerstone of my balance in my life at this point. And so I don't rely on just medicine or music or racing. It starts with them, and in the morning and at night, it starts with my family. The financial standpoint, making sure that you're not frivolously spending, and making sure that you have your bills paid and you're not living check to check. I did that once upon a time. I was one of those people that wanted to be cool, and I spent money that I didn't have, and I maxed out credit cards, and it ended up to be a kind of a bad story. And, I had to come back from that. And then finally, the physical aspect, work out 2 to 3 times a week, make sure you get your sleep, which some people will argue I don't sleep enough. And then have regular exercise. And I think through that, you build up this so-called mental toughness, to where I think the best, when you look at people that are successful, when the going gets tough, they just keep going. And I think that that's within all of us. You just have to find that within your passion, your willpower, and your drive.
No, and I think you're completely right. And the whole thing of failure, it's kind of like my mid-20s, I just was like, let's just do it all in 3 years, let's just really blow it up, just so I can learn. Right. And I think at the end of the day, those types of situations where, maxing out a credit card, that's not ideal, right? We're not saying that it's not a piece of advice to go and max out a credit card. Having said that, having get yourself out of that situation to another place. I mean, I always think about things as you either sit, and excuse my French on this, because whatever, you either sit in the shit or get out of the shit. Right. And I think Correct. At the end of the day, most of the time when you talked about those 4 variables, you're either sitting in it, and that's when you can extend, and have a weakened mental fitness muscle, right? It depends how you long want to sit in it, or you get out of it. Right. So I just think, the more, and thinking about like the brain and how it can rewire itself and how we are so resilient and as human beings. It's just one of those things where if we can really look inside the house of why you wake up every single day, whether that's, if you're your own family at the moment, then you're your own family, right? But you're comfortable with yourself, and then you can extend that to others. But if you just look inside your house, like the warmth is there, and being able to block out social media. If you watch I watch a lot of TV just to like ease my mind, but you have to separate that stuff, because what's going on in TV is like not reality all the time, right? So it's kind of one of those things of like being able to kind of push through those aspects, and celebrate the failures.
Oh, absolutely. I can't echo that enough. It's so easy, I think, to fail. This was certainly not easy to build these successes. And there were several times when, like you said, you don't want to be that person that's trying to dig yourself out of debt. We all have some form of debt, and it takes some maturity. And I didn't have it at that particular time. And look, again, through the grace of God and some good people in my path, I was able to overcome those things. And when we look at the failures of why people fail, at least today, at whatever demographic you look in, there's a guy that wrote about this, and it's written in several books, and it's these four things. It's one. It's poor parenting. And so now I'm challenged as a parent to make sure that I'm raising my kids appropriately, and making sure that they get the leadership that they have at home, that they're getting the appropriate teaching, that they read the right books and they follow the right path. The second thing is social media. It's this unfettered access to the internet that can really destroy someone. And it's all about balance. And it's not that it's bad, it just needs to be balanced, because people can overcome and take over your mind. The third thing is your environment. And so surround yourself with positive people. If you surround yourself with negative people, then you're going to be cloaked in negativity. And so it's really hard to make it out of a house fire if you surround yourself with just fire. And then the last
gas all the time,
right. And then the last thing is just patience. A lot of people aren't patient enough to see the picture evolve to something special. And you really have to be patient, particularly in these times, as there's struggle and a lot of things going on in the world.
Well, I like that. I like the way you've been framing things in the fours. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm interviewing you as an not interviewing the host of the show, but I mean, you're doing a great job so far. So I love that. I'm really excited to have you as a host of the podcast. But I guess to kind of round it out a little bit, you definitely offered a couple tools and all that jazz, but I'd love to talk a little bit more about, and you don't have to give an excerpt, but if there's a particular portion of the book that you kind of would love to tease or share, if there's a story or something in there to share with the audience, that would be amazing.
Wow. I think the way the book starts off, there's a lady who is brought into the emergency room department, and really she was involved in a car accident with four of her other family members, and she had a CT scan, which is a scan that's obtained that goes over the brain, at least in my specialty, and from the looks of it, this was not a survivable injury at all. It was really, really horrible injury, and I just finished an operation, and I walked out of the operating room, and the ER was just really blowing me up. And so I walked over, it was kind of right down the hall from surgery. And I remember looking at the scan, I could see it across the room. And I just thought to myself, I kind of spoke out loud, what are we doing here? There's no way this patient's doing well. This is horrible. And so the ER physicians looked at me, and it turns out one of the family members was actually there with the physicians, and they were looking at the CT scan, and it was Mother's Day, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this Mother's Day. I just kind of recall this is Mother's Day, and I remember thinking to myself, like the radiologist had already called the ER physicians and said, look, this is terminal. This patient's not going to make it. I'm not really even sure you need to call the neurosurgeon on call because this is bad. And I remember speaking to her son, And he was telling me about the accident. And I said, it's Mother's Day. If there's anything on her examination, we're going to try if there's some sort of neurological function. So long story short, we ended up taking her to the operating room. And on the second day or so, I was speaking to her husband, and her family was there the whole time. And I said, look, this looks bad. But look, this is, we've tried, nothing's happened. We'll get another scan, but I don't see this going well. And day 3, well, first of all, her CT scan, which was a particular scan that would look at her vessels as well, didn't really look too bad, which was very, very interesting. And so day 3, she started to move. And eventually, about a week or so out, she was moving more, but required a transfer to a rehab center. So she wasn't really awake and talking and all that. But she actually returned to the hospital about 3 months later on her own will, walking, giving gifts to the nurses, telling the staff that she was so thankful. And this happened, I think, 6 or 7 years ago. And so every Mother's Day, and sometimes on other holidays, she visits my office and she brings food. And so she's like one of the greatest things that happened to me, that I believe God spoke through me and said that things are possible as long as you trust and you believe in things.
Well, that's a gorgeous story. So she was okay after, like, she was able to regain everything?
She regained 95% of her function. She, every now and then, she has moments where she forgets things like I do. But overall, yes, she was an amazing cook that I heard about while she was still on a breathing machine. And so she cooks all the time. And so the neighborhood has their cook back. And, there's just such a wonderful woman, wonderful. She's just an angel.
That's gorgeous. And here's the thing too. I mean, I think really when it comes down to medicine is we really need more folks like you, doctor. I'm calling you a doctor in this sense because we're pivoting over to Dr. Cormier, because that's where it's like, you got to take the chance and also like really look at the full body of what's going on, because I just feel like these days look with the COVID crisis, we're moving so quickly and we're all trying to do our best, but it's kind of like one of those things, like you have to have your family as advocates around for you as well, because it's like, that's really all you have.
Oh, 100%. You can tell a lot about a patient by the number of family members that show up. And people that have 15 and 20 family members that show up, you can tell just a lot about that. And you're absolutely right. It's great to have the family there that you can speak to them and get an idea of what they would want if they were awake and speaking to us, what they want us to continue forward and try or risk living on a ventilator, or would they decide, look, just don't do anything. I've lived my life, etc. So yeah, I can't stress that enough.
Well, that's a great story to start off the book with. And I think that's a great kind of note to wrap up, because I could talk to you for another 2 hours, but I think we need to tease things out for your podcast and all that jazz. But, is there any other, just kind of to flip, is there any particular lessons that you would kind of like to close out the interview with?
I think that, I hope when people read the book, hopefully they read the book, that they find that, when presented with adversity or, boundaries, if you will, that they have to overcome, that nothing is insurmountable. And again, if someone tells you that, look, you can't do this, whether it's music, whether it's sports, then maybe that just means they can't do it with you. Or you can't do it with them, rather, but you can still accomplish it. When I was in college, and there was a point in time where my mother and I just did not speak at all, and I felt like I was alone from the standpoint of my family was kind of cut off. I decided that was kind of my point in the road, my fork in the road, where I decided it's going to be myself and my God, and I know God's not going to let me down. And so if I fail, it's because of me. And so I had to pony up and dig deep, and through that, I knew I couldn't blame anybody else except myself. And once you kind of put that sort of bounty on yourself, that sort of responsibility, being accountable, then things will happen. There's a fire in all of us. There's a fire of success in all of us. And I tell many people every day in surgery that success is really just a lease, and rent is due every single day. So you pay your rent, you will succeed. If you don't, you will be evicted. And so I hope that the adversity that people see and encounter, it's also a challenge. It's just feedback, and that's God kind of testing you, and you can do it. I'm a simple human being. I'm not a Superman, and I hope that people see that an average person that grew up with, again, challenges and what some would see as insurmountable odds, was able to make something out of himself. And it didn't take a superhero. I'm not a genius. I'm just a person with drive, will, and determination, and a really good supportive family. And with that, my fiance, Caitlin, our son, Brixton, and our newborn, Celine, that's the cornerstone of my pot of gold, if you will.
I love that. I really love that. And once the book is out, it is called Driven. We have Dr. Jason Cormier here as a guest on We Are Everyone /Mental Recess. We'll be also launching a very exciting show named Rise Above. TBD on exact launch date. We're hoping this summer, but let's all be flexible here because we know that we all have things to do. So outside of the show. So I really appreciate you joining us today, Jason. I'm so excited to continue this conversation. And we will include all the links to everything promotion wise. So we really appreciate it.
Jen, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. The pleasure, and definitely this was an opportunity and privilege.
Yes. Thank you for tuning into another episode of We Are Everyone. You can subscribe to We Are Everyone on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and also be sure to visit www.pivotalmoments.org to learn more about the organization. And we also want to hear what mental wellness means to you. So you can follow us on social media, submit your video, and we will catch you next time. Thank you so much.